Seems to be going.
Did you decide, are we Facebook Live?
Facebook Live.
Okay.
Yeah.
So will we have where will we pick up the live?
It's on the Safe South Frontenac page. And I've got people watching, so that's a success.
I got people waiting, and I'll send them a link.
Thank you. Yeah, not the group, the page. I'll hang out back there, and I can do a thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, perfect. Okay, I know where the volume is on the back. Okay, I'm at the disadvantage that my flashlight is here. Oh, that was. I figured it out.
Okay, if you have joined us today, thank you so much for coming out. Please find a seat. We're going to get going. Hello? It's 5:03. Okay, here we are, folks. I don't know why I'm holding it. I also have a loud voice too, so I can just put this down.
Don't hold the button. Just press the button, hold the mic.
That's what you told me ahead of time, and I should have listened. He did say that like literally a minute and a half ago. All right, folks, thanks for being here today in person and online. My name is Katie. I'm co-lead with Gord Bolton of Save South Frontenac. And as we were putting our report together, it's kind of funny because these last 3 months have been very long for all of us. And when I went back to our website to see what our mission and objectives are, and we had a statement on our website very early, like the first week of February. And what's kind of neat is that this summary report actually quite reflects, like you would want it to reflect your mission and objectives, but I didn't realize how acutely it does that. So as a reminder, just kind of set the tone for our evening here together, our statement is as follows. That Save South Frontenac is a citizen-led community organization unequivocally opposed to the potential southern corridor of the Alto high-speed rail project through South Frontenac Township. Our mission is rooted in the protection of people and place. Our mission is rooted, we reject infrastructure decisions that prioritize speed, cost savings, and political expediency over human rights, environmental stewardship, and democratic process. Our objectives encourage an urgent and collective call to action. So the human impact that we have been deeply concerned about is the forced expropriation of private land and its irreversible impacts, the systemic lack of transparent, timely, and meaningful communication from Alto and the federal government, the fragmentation of the township caused by a fenced high-speed rail line, environmental stewardship that we have been deeply concerned about, excuse me, the future of the Frontenac Arch biosphere, a designated UNESCO biosphere region, and the Cat Trail. These are areas at risk of development. Identified route options seem to prioritize minimizing cost and distance above minimizing impact or sensitive habitat, communities, and properties. Bill C-15 seeks to reduce environmental oversight, and as such, Alto has not made available to date any environmental assessments in either corridor. So we wrote that February 1st, and there are still no assessments. Our calls to action are as follows. Encouraging Alto and the federal government to immediately seek a least impact alternative and reconsider identified routes, making available relevant, accurate, and timely information to residents, elevating resident voices, yours and your stories, advocating for fair and due process by calling upon the federal government to honor true community consultation methods between South Frontenac residents, local environmental organizations, and Alto. So we are 3 months in, and we have made quite a few new friends. There are many organizational allies represented here today, from Turtles Kingston to Zone F OFA members to Josh, who will be speaking as the NFU Ontario president, and more. And we also have, if you want to raise your hands, because people keep asking online, you might have been one of them. Have you talked to all the Facebook group leads? You guys should really get together. So I want you to just raise your hand. We've been meeting since March 2nd. And Heather in the back. So we have been meeting. And while this is a message directly to and about South Frontenac residents and our collective experience here, it was really important to go beyond our boundaries so you can see that we're not just in it by ourselves or for ourselves, that we have gone across township boundaries to build relationship, to network share, resource share, etc. So with that said, I'm going to pass the mic to our first guest, who will come on up here before Gordon and I go through the report. So Josh Suppin, would you please come on up? And Andrew, if you want to just join him at the table here. And after they speak, their 10 to 15 minutes, we will go into the summary report.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I hope I look the part. I actually used to farm just around the corner from here, but I farm just south of Harrow-Smith. I'm actually technically in the city of Kingston. I'm right on the border, so I hope it's okay that I'm here with in South Frontenac. But yeah, I'm a farmer. I've been a farmer for a long time, and I'm a proud member of the National Farmers Union Local 316, which is the local right here. And I'm also the president of the National Farmers Union Ontario. And if you're not familiar with the National Farmers Union, it is an accredited farm organization. We represent thousands of farmers across Ontario. We are nonpartisan, which means we don't align with any political party. We are democratic and farmer-led. So if you are a farmer, please consider becoming a member. And also, if you're not a farmer, you can also join as an associate member to support all of our work. Our membership support is how we do all of the great advocacy work that we do, such as this. The NFUO has a long history of advocacy for effective long-term public transportation, calling for the expansion of intercity and community public transit, particularly rail-based systems, thereby reducing air passengers, reducing greenhouse gases and carbon emissions, and delivering accessible, sustainable public transportation. But despite the marketing, Alto is none of these things. NFUO is opposed to the current Alto approach and calls on the federal and provincial decision makers to pause, disclose, reassess, and redesign accordingly. The NFUO is calling for farmland protection being a starting principle and not an afterthought. Existing transportation and infrastructure corridors need to be prioritized. No expropriation or route finalization without full public disclosure. Agricultural impact assessments must be mandatory. Meaningful consultation and free, prior, and informed consent, FPIC, must occur early, directly, and transparently. Farmers must have full legal, technical, and financial support. That's not coming out of their pocket. No weakening of environmental assessment or expropriation safeguards. And the burden of proof must rest with Alto and the government. And currently, we're not seeing pretty much any action on that. On March 17th, the NFUO put out our own media statements, and then on April 15th, the NFU, which is the National Farmers Union, also put one out. I highly recommend looking those up. That's just nfu.ca, nfuontario.ca. It's worth checking out. Alto has also asked the NFUO to join a technical consultation working group, and we're trying to figure out exactly what that means at this point. We do want to be at the table. We think that's important, but we also want to be able to express ourselves both in those meetings and outside of those meetings. I'm happy to be here today, and I'm looking forward to Q&A. But that's what I have to say for right now. So thanks for having us here.
This gentleman is Dr. Andrew Hyatt. Many of you have already listened to him. He is everybody's favorite retired geologist and quite the rock star.
Yeah, the old jokes. Yeah, it's been a 12 weeks with a lot of learning, and I'll move quickly to make my point. It's kind of a story that I'm going to tell. I should have really just called my presentation "People are harder than rocks," because that's the big takeaway from this presentation. Many of you may have been at my talks where I wasn't sure about the arguments being made about the southern route being so easy across farmland. It's farmland, it's grain. Let's just plow our way across that. The shield is too hard. So I started investigating the sedimentary corridor, and that was the first piece of research I did. My co-author, Ron Peterson, is here today. Then geology, I started thinking water. Water is the Achilles heel of high-speed rail, so difference between the north and the south. All that water flowing south has to get across the railway. 3 to 5 trillion, 1,000 trillion liters of water, or some ridiculous number. So again, Gordon picked up on this. He made a little video on this idea of major engineering challenges. I thought it was all about the engineering at this stage, and I wanted to try and understand what the cost was going to be to build this railway. I just had a feeling it was going to be way more than they were telling us. So I started playing around with some kind of index to capture how difficult the geology, the hydrology, the cold weather engineering, the aggregate, all of these things. And so I made up this kind of index, because what I want to do is look at high-speed rail projects from all around the world and try and understand from those and the relation between engineering complexity and cost, understand from those how much it will cost to build Alto. So I played around, I weighted things, I fudged like hell. I really fudged this data hard. And the best I could do was find about a correlation of about 57%. So 43% of the kind of trend in the data I couldn't explain. With all my engineering, we spent hours and hours kind of trying to understand the engineering. And that's pretty poor plot. But I began to notice something here on this plot. If you look at the UK, California, there's some German cases and also any Scandinavian cases, they're above the line. The Chinese cases are well below the line. Yeah. I wouldn't be talking like this in China. You have to understand. I wouldn't be around for very long. So what I began to work out a few weeks ago is that there was something else going on in this data set. And one thing that tools that I'm using is very good at is going to these projects around the world and drilling down into what I began to call community friction. All the community dollars being spent by these projects to try and keep people happy. There's a community package. Alto will have a community package with the civils part to keep you guys happy. They'll throw in a trail here. They're working out how much that package is going to be at the moment. And that's all documented from these projects around the world. So community friction, what does it look like? That's community friction right there. That's where it all started. Yeah. And we needed someone to kickstart the process. And that was, for us, that was Gord, and Katie, and Heather, and I know there's many others. So, what does community friction look like? It's going to evolve over the next 3 or 4 years until hopefully the project is cancelled. Yeah. But it's going to involve public opposition. That's what we're doing here today. There's going to be legal stuff, and it should be collective legal stuff. The farmers may play a big role in that, and other landowners will play a role. There may be some forced route changes here. We don't know where they're going yet. This is why this consultation is a bit strange. We don't know. The environmental NGOs are going to kick in. They're going to have to do their SARA stuff, their species at risk things. And again, there's a lot of work that's going to have to be done here as we continue. The consultation's over, but this is really just getting going. Yeah. And finally, politicians. I think Michelle Foxton is here today. I was at Elgin last night, and Michael Barrett was there. I think Scott Reed was in, good to meet you. Scott Reed was in Melbourne last night. So the politicians are stepping up, and we need it to be bipartisan. This is not a political issue as far as I'm concerned. I voted Liberal, okay? But that doesn't mean that on other occasions I've voted in different ways. This is not a political issue as far as we are concerned. Very much on our website, we will not take any politicization of this. So those are the factors. And when I plotted the same data set that I showed you before against community friction, I get a better correlation than with, in terms of what the cost is. I get a better correlation than the engineering. That's a crazy result. That's a crazy result. And it's super encouraging for us. Yeah. How can we think about it? Let's think house prices, yeah? You're going to go buy a house. You might think house price, it's about the size of the house. But actually, there's also the location of the house. And we know that the mantra for real estate is location, location, location. Yeah? It's the same with this railway. Engineering complexity, you kind of think that should be the main thing. But there's a more powerful correlation, a more meaningful correlation with friction. So it's a bivariate approach, yeah. And if I combine the engineering and the friction, I end up with a really good correlation here. 0.9. I've captured. I've got a model. And I've got a model where I can predict, where I can basically predict the price or the cost of the Alto project. Alto should be telling us, giving us this information. They can run this kind of analysis. I mean, maybe you can say that this whole exercise is just being for them to gauge community friction. And if that is the case, we've done a very good job there. But I don't believe that because they damaged their project. Their project is damaged at this stage, badly damaged already. Yeah. My AI is telling me that consultation down here does not have the hallmark and the quality of consultation that was done in the UK. Cisco, the company that does that consultation for HS2 in the UK, had a very high standard with their community consultation. This has been really low quality here and somewhat confusing. Have Alto just done some kind of internal hacker consultation? It feels like. Where are we currently? What's our friction index? What's our score? How well have we done? It's a number out of 100. We're at 43. Okay, out of 100. That's a pretty good score at this stage, in this early stage of this almost pre-consultation. This has really ramped up quickly, and this will concern them. And of course, things like the map here, you know, it looks like it should be higher, but the problem is that this is just feeding into this first component here, yeah? And that can't go any higher. We need the other stuff to kick in over time. So really, the dark blue there, we made the noise, and it's really got things going. Why has that number got up as high as it has to 43? Well, let's see if we recognize any of these. And these are for projects around the world. This is what drives friction. Tokenistic or premature consultation.
Check.
Check.
Route through farmland.
Check.
No transparency in corridor selection methodology.
Check.
Expensive or novel expropriation frameworks. Novel. Think C15. That's a novel framework.
Everyone, check.
Yes. Species at risk. No business plan.
Check.
Station, location, and community bypass. It's like you read this stuff, and it's like they've done everything that is the opposite of what they should have done. It's unbelievable.
Need big paycheck or something.
Well, someone, they are. Honestly, I would personally, and maybe I shouldn't say this, I'm not sure Anglo will survive very long in the way he's going. Yeah. We're at 43 at the moment. Where are we going to go over the next 4 years prior to the project being cancelled? Yeah. The red line there is what I call a high energy approach, a high energy approach. So the yellow line is we may get up to 65, and if we all lose energy or they, I don't know, somehow, maybe if, you know, so if we all lose energy, we might only crawl up to 50. So I can only work my model in terms of that midpoint there, 65 value. So we're already a big amount of the way there already. Yeah. And what needs to kick in to get up to that value is the legal stuff will kick in. The political stuff, C15 and the majority government, it's going to be hard work to move that political factor higher until we get pre-election. Yeah. And then there's environmental stuff and other options. So I now have a predictive model. So this is the highlight of my talk now. I'm going to tell you how much Alto is going to cost based on a proper analysis. Do I have any guesses?
300.
It's not 60 or 90.
No.
And this is based on mid-range, a friction index of 65. 143 billion. That's a conservative cost of what the project will cost as of today. Yeah, in terms of that friction level, if it doesn't go up the whole. Yeah.
Do you include the cost of borrowing in that figure, or is that another additional cost? Because if you look at, say, 90 billion over 50 years, at a minuscule 2%, you're looking at about $150 billion we're going to pay in interest on that alone.
Yeah. So that is compared to other high-speed rail projects around the world. In China, I'm not quite sure what the bond holders are having to pay. Putting this kind of information out here is going to affect pricing of bonds. Yeah. And really, Alto have made a mistake. Their 75 billion is in the bottom 2.5 percentile of what, so there's a 1 in 40 chance of it being less than 75 billion. I mean, a 1 in 40 chance. Do Alto know this? I think they do, yeah. I think they do. They think we're simple. Yeah. They think we're simple. Do they understand community friction? Which do you think they're prioritizing? Community friction or environment? They know very well, yeah, and I think there's various outcomes from what I'm saying. And anyhow, that's the end of my presentation. Okay. Yeah, so the staffing levels then, 36 communication staff, 2 environmental scientists, 42 for land negotiation, and 10 on the environmental side. Yeah, so it makes me think that what I see from this reference class of projects around the world, it is very, they understand that. Yeah. Their secret is not letting us know, because they want to minimize what we're trying to do today.
Okay, we're going to have a Q&A at the end, so we can move things along, and we're really on time. That's good. Hey, Gord, do you want to start a committee?
This one.
Okay. We lied. It's 4 hours because we have to go through 96 pages. How we will approach sharing our 3-month summary report with you is we are going to take it in a broad stroke of different sections, okay? Because we don't want to be here for 4 hours. And we are going to make the majority of the report available online to read. And that will probably be tomorrow. So that's how we will approach this large document. And we're going to just read a little bit from it as well. So, okay, so this is our abstract. Felt like I was back in school. This report has been prepared to document the Save South Frontenac Committee's 3-month review of the available information on the Alto high-speed rail proposal, to highlight significant areas of concern raised by residents and stakeholders, including route selection, land use, environmental protection, property rights, and the long-term socio-economic implications for rural communities such as South Frontenac. Save South Frontenac has also identified gaps in the consultation and assessment process to date. Our goal is not only to present evidence and analysis, but also to advocate for meaningful engagement with affected communities and for a planning process that fully considers local impacts alongside national transportation objectives.
So the Alto project background, announced by the federal government in February of 2025 as part of a long-term strategy to modernize intercity transportation. The Alto high-speed rail project proposes a dedicated 1,000-kilometer electrified rail network, capable of supporting trains operating at up to approximately 300 kilometers per hour. The initiative aims to reduce travel times, increase passenger capacity and frequency of rail service, and provide a lower carbon alternative to automobile and short-haul air travel in densely populated Quebec to Windsor corridor. Dedicated stops will occur only in 7 centers: Toronto, Peterborough, Ottawa, Montreal, Laval, Trois-Rivières, and Quebec City.
So Save South Frontenac established ourselves as a committee on January 25th, and every week has been different since. Our work summary report in this document outlines the fact that because of your support, we were able to distribute in our early days 7,300 flyers to residents through the Frontenac News. Community discussion forums were then created on multiple Facebook pages, which now we have a combined total of over 16,000 followers, and I mean, some of you are like part of all 3 of them. Not only have we had a large and very influential social media presence, but we have also gained considerable social license to represent the concerns of South Frontenac area residents. Our other efforts to close that informational gap have included the establishment and ongoing maintenance of a website, a coordinated local flyer delivery campaign that to this date has distributed an additional 2,000 flyers, hosting 2 community open houses with expert guest speakers in Sydenham and Inverary, numerous speaking events at churches, community luncheons and markets, hundreds of emails to community associations, radio advertisements throughout the Kingston region, 2 virtual expropriation webinars with land litigation firms, community research and outreach to local organizations tracking public opposition and concerns about the project, and organizing an event to support community members with limited internet access or computer skills in accessing Alto's online platform to submit their feedback. Despite these layered efforts, many residents still report that they only learned of the existence of Alto's proposed southern corridor at the end of February, making the consultation period extremely narrow, even with an extension to the end of this month, this week. And Alto still has not directly contacted all stakeholders. I was speaking in Sterling Rawdon just 2 weeks ago, and a lovely older couple only learned that they were in Alto's purple haze from a family friend's phone call like 2 weeks before that date. So people are still only finding out now. And oddly enough, when we look at it in its totality, we are also learning that there's a lot of people in that urban center that have no idea what's going on, like more west of Peterborough.
So the South Frontenac Township data analysis. Considerable work is being undertaken by the Safe Frontenac Committee to communicate the possible impacts of the Alto Plan and seek community input. In February 18th, we provided a paper survey at one of our information sessions. This is one of the numerous things that we did to get information from the public in an honest and clear way. We didn't want questions out there that weren't relevant to any other thing that was going on in relation to Alto. We wanted it to be very basic. And from this point on is where we really gathered a lot of momentum in, okay, we really need to converse with the public, and we really need to get the information from them, and we really need to document it. So we did the data analysis that represents approximately 1/3 of those who attended the information sessions.
And this was Alto's open house at Storrington Lions Club. So if you had a paper survey and you remember filling that out, you are in you made the summary report with your contribution.
Yeah, and it was very good. It was, and actually Alto let us be there. I think they knew that was probably in their best interest, is that we were there, not just for security, but for other reasons. But and it was very telling. It was more telling than I thought. The disapproval for Alto. So like one of the questions was, did Alto provide enough information for you to confidently approve or disapprove Alto's southern route? And it was 70% of the people disapproved. Another question was, do you support the Alto train going through the southern route? And 55% is that, so they do not support any high-speed train at all. 43% I do not support the southern route, and only 2.6% supported the route. The third question is, would you support a passenger-first rail line along the 401 corridor that invests in existing or new tracks and systems? And 88% approved of that, 1.3 do not support, and 10.1 did not have enough information. And the fourth question was in relation to the Alto train project. How concerned are you about the mental health and well-being for your community? And 84% were very concerned, 10% were somewhat concerned, and 5.1% were not concerned at all.
We also did an online survey through Mentimeter, and you'll notice that we were really professional, and we did an appendix in this as well. So when we didn't want to we wanted to make sure that a lot of the data didn't take up from the text, and you can find that in the appendix. So we do have screen captures of our Mentimeter survey towards the end, but there were a lot of comments on that from across both corridors, because it was important for us to, at that point in creating the Mentimeter online survey, not just ask what people thought about the southern corridor, but to show solidarity with those who would be affected in the northern corridor as well. So the results are reflected of both northern and southern corridor.
So the map you can see to the right here was our next step after we were conducting our own surveys and getting a grasp of what people thought in the public. And I have to thank the committee in relation to this and going forward, because they really come together for this information. One of the things Alto require is something called social licensing, and that is basically the acceptance of all the stakeholders, the community, the businesses, and everyone in the area to have social licensing to put this train route through. And I think with this slide and numerous ones coming forward, you'll find out that they don't have that. And in relation to this map, you will see that everything in there that is red with the X, obviously, is people that do not support the current plan. There is some question marks in there in relation to some organizations that basically did not want to provide a comment for whatever reason. But you can see that it's very, very overwhelming. This not only represents but confirms everyone's suspicion in relation to the overall acceptance of the Alto train, and it was getting more and more evident that there was basically no support in South Frontenac, and it was really starting to spread all across eastern Ontario and the north, that there was not going to be support for the Alto train.
I will speak to how this map has been birthed each week since March 11th. And there are two main mappers who shall go nameless because they are just very humble people and don't want to be named. They feel that this is a community, like a committee undertaking. But you should also know that those mappers don't go to bed until 4 in the morning on Wednesday when we release it within the early morning hours the next day. We will release one tomorrow because we've been kind of busy today. So Wednesday's map will come on Thursday. But here's the process that these very brilliant committee members take to, they have a very refined methodology of how we get to this map. So their step one is to identify possible statements from all government jurisdictions. They check weekly for updates and they collect input from the public. So if you've said, hey, no, that's wrong, X township did make a statement, they follow through with that. Step two is that they validate the sources and they watch all council meetings. They review their minutes. And I think from what I understand, it's the reviewing of the minutes. So a motion can pass, but until it's in the minutes for the next meeting, then that brings everything together and that's the final stamp on this. So that's how the mappers have worked. So if you're like, oh, they passed the motion 3 days ago, they're waiting for those minutes to come out, that it is codified somewhere. And then they also have been collecting quotes from public figures in the media that has been occasionally used. Step three is that they've interpreted the position. So then what symbol should they use on the map that's relative to Alto's current plan as it has been presented. A legend was then created that you're all familiar with the red X representing those who do not support. The yellow plus is used where a new stop or route has been proposed. 3 exclamation marks means that the person or organization has stated concerns about the current plan but has not made a formal statement. A gray P in a circle means that a statement is pending. A gray question mark means that there is no formal statement as of yet. And sadly, there are a few green check marks that indicate project approval. Step 4, the map was created in plain language using an infographic intended for a wide audience. The symbols are geographically sensitive, but not precise. Some have a relatively small spatial scope and others much larger. And an example of that is like a federal riding versus a municipality. Step 5 is that they compile and post the actual statements. It's a thoughtful process which involves drafting a weekly concise public statement, gleaning from all updates, collated in a summary table with links to statements. And this is housed on SaveSouthFrontenac.ca, our opposition maps drop-down menu. This weekly opposition map was picked up by the major news outlets across Canada on April 7th, when Prime Minister Mark Carney doubled down on his support for Alto's HSR project. When you Google Carney, opposition, Save South Frontenac, this lists Frontenac News, BNN Bloomberg, Yahoo Finance Canada, CTV News, Global News, North Shore News in BC, and Richmond News in BC are a few examples that have picked up this map. So we're going to go into just the larger captures of this report. Again, we're not going to summarize everything here today, but our report also includes environmental considerations and socioeconomic considerations.
So one that's very near and dear to all of our hearts in this area is the Frontenac Arch Biosphere Region. The township of South Frontenac lies within the Frontenac Arch Biosphere Region, a landscape internationally recognized by UNESCO for its exceptional ecological significance and biodiversity. Approximately 100 kilometers long and only 50 kilometers wide, the geological formation of the Frontenac Arc forms a narrow band supporting one of the highest densities of rare species in Ontario and connects the Canadian Shield to the Adirondack Mountains of New York State. This slender thread of Precambrian rock is one of the last remaining intact forest wildlife corridors, which connects the Canadian Shield to the Adirondack Mountains, acts as a critical, and it is very, very critical, north-south pathway and function as a major ecological corridor, therefore enabling the movement of species between northern and southern ecosystems across eastern North America and creating potential habitat connections between Florida and eastern Canada. And in relation to that, I'd like to give a prime example, just north of my property in Riva Lakes area. There's been lots of reports of this moose, I think they call him Marty. And prior to that, and it's been documented, there is actually a corridor of moose that move from the Adirondack Mountains to Algonquin Park, and that is just a prime example of, you don't really see it, and it's very rarely, but like, I don't know where that moose come from, but it may have come from the States, right? Like, it's not, you don't see moose around here all the time, and that's just a very prime example of this corridor and how important it is.
So we're going to skip through a bunch of these, the environmental section, but you should know that we refer to Queen's University Biological Station, also known as CUBES. Now, the irony of this is, if you've been paying attention to the Force of Nature document that came out by the Liberal government, so the caveat is that we are trying to be as nonpartisan as possible, but we also know that there are just very factual things of which, political group has put out certain things. So the Liberal government put out something called a Force of Nature and has enlisted CUBES as part of the broader $3.8 billion investment to achieve Canada's nature protection targets. So the irony is that CUBES lies within the proposed southern corridor and is at risk of Alto's devastating construction. We also have in our report reference to the key VAs, which are the key biological areas. We also talk about the regional ecological impacts in terms of connectivity that Gord was just talking about. We talk about species at risk, the hydrogeology considerations, which also include effects on wetlands and groundwater impacts. Then we look at the broader scope of the socioeconomic considerations and potential impacts. And one of them is the small business impacts.
Yeah, I can speak briefly about so we were a little bit behind, and some of the other organizations were very well at identifying businesses and getting them to come forward. We were a little late on it, but we did put out a letter to the businesses, and it was immediate that the businesses were responding, that they were against the Alto train in its current form. And it was kind of the only thing that we were missing, I feel anyway, in relation to our report. Everything else I thought we had done very well and was very accurate. And we quickly did that, I think, like a week and a half ago, I think is all we started, and it just took off and the list just started growing and growing.
There are 102 businesses signed on within like 7 days.
And we expect that to obviously rise even, but continue to rise as well. That is something new that we've just approached. But still very impressive for South Frontenac to have that many businesses immediately. I mean immediately, not even asking a question, like we're against it and put us on the list. And you can see that list we have on our website, and it has been posted as well. So probably good businesses to support.
We also capture real estate values, property market impacts, and one of the other community outreach sort of smaller events that we hosted was a working group that brought together a handful of local professionals. Josh was one of them, to speak on farming impacts. And so when we do have reference in our fancy appendix to we had a real estate agent join us, and he that group made a very particular statement, and you can read what they said. We had people make an environmental statement which echoes the concerns of the Frontenac Arch biosphere and species at risk. So what I'm trying to say is that these broad statements that you will read in our summary report are backed up by South Frontenac specific experts in our area. And then we also discuss food systems and agriculture considerations and their potential impacts as well, including food systems, and then also the road network and emergency responses. And we also have local experts who have spoken about that. So to not labor the point, just read the report and read what they have to say. But it is very, specific with regards to the things that we have heard about, potentially dead-ending roads and severing communities. What does that look like for EMS? What does that look like for school buses, etc.? So that is also in the report. We also have some fancy maps in here too to back that up. And that is the totality of our report. So it's really hard to, within like 15 minutes, put in 36 of a third of our summary report. But our report also includes, that I want to draw attention to, I want you to think about it as it's a time capsule. This is a time capsule of all our work, not just our committees, but like your input as well. This summary report, there is a section that is dedicated to, with their permission, letters that have been sent to Save South Frontenac, very concerned community members. Frontenac Arch also allowed us to include their most recent statement, so that is in part of like the statements as well as the letters that we have received as a committee. That is why it's this long. We wanted to make sure that it was a very good picture of our correspondence, of our connection with community members over 12 weeks, because you all have been so incredibly supportive emotionally, some really great direct messages that say keep going. You might have financially given to us so we could print these really fancy reports and do everything that we've been able to do. So this is a gift back to the community and an accountability report as well. Towards the end, we also have principles and recommendations. And essentially what we would like to say is that in alignment with a least harm and greatest good approach, Save South Frontenac advocates that the Government of Canada gives serious and active thought to our 7 principles and recommendations and work with us to optimize a good path forward. And these principles in a nutshell are as follows. Number 1, do not route through South Frontenac. Yeah. Number 2, protect agriculture, land, and food security. 3, safeguard our rural tourism and outdoor economy. We also make reference to the fact that, and we're not a snowmobiling family, but the snowmobiling industry brings in $3-point-something billion a year. That is, like, across the corridor, that is a significant chunk of change that needs to be considered. Respect environmental sensitivity, minimize expropriation and community disruption. Number 6, protect road connectivity and public safety. Prioritize, number 7, prioritize appropriate station locations. So that, and to explain that a little bit further, we support improved rail connectivity in Kingston as a key economic hub for Eastern Ontario. We're not against, as a committee, as a whole, or individuals, reliable rail. I think baseline rail systems look like, being on time and having more than 50% of your train cars operating at any given time. I think that if we want to compare ourselves as a country to the other countries that have high-speed rail, there's a lot we need to consider. And one of the biggest differences is that those other countries that Andrew was referring to, not only do they have, passenger rail priority, but as legislation, and we don't. So iBlue talks about his recipe for what this really shiny, fast thing project looks like. It's going to deflate because we don't have passenger rail priority like other countries do. That is a key ingredient, I would say, that is missing from his recipe. So we need to look at this in a more thoughtful approach and look at what would best serve all of us. There are also legitimate questions around governance oversight and the relationships between public decision makers and private sector partners involved in the project. Projects of this scale must meet the highest standards of accountability and public trust, standards that have not yet been clearly demonstrated. And what we are saying today is that if these principles are not meaningfully reflected in the next stage, in the next phase of planning, we will continue to organize, advocate, and escalate our response to ensure our voices are heard. And that we will continue to advocate firmly for an approach that protects our land, our economy, and our way of life. As a committee member said in a meeting just a few days ago, we want to continue to be the problem that Alto has to solve. So I'm hoping you will join us in that, because there's still a lot of work to do. This is just a quick snapshot of some of the this is like a page of some pages in our report. So even the flyers, we want you to remember what we spent your money on. The flyers of what that looks like, the Mentimeter that we have done. This is also just for us as well, right, as a committee. And again, the statements that have been made, especially when South Frontenac Township Council opposed Alto on February 7th. Thank you to council members who are present, who are taking the lead on that, and I see you, Mayor Gamble-Walston. In an effort to be as transparent as possible, we also have a financials page, so you can see what we have spent some money on. We have listed the businesses to date that have signed on to that business opposition letter. And finally, we have another piece to this that we would like to share with you.
So, during the end of February and coming on the beginning of March, as I spoke about before, our plan was get information from the public and see where we're at and see how everyone feels so we can have a common goal going forward. Sitting down one evening with my mother, and she said, geez, like all this Alto, like they get all that information, they're probably just gonna throw it away. And I just thought, they're gonna either throw it away or they're gonna manipulate that data to make it look good for themselves. So this is, in my opinion, we've done great work all along. This is the meat and potatoes. And I just want to give a disclaimer before we go any farther that this information that we have here has been taken freely, that is public knowledge, and we have compiled it, and this is our own opinion, and this is our own analysis of the information. So when I spoke earlier about social licensing, so social licensing, like I said, is that the government needs to ensure that the public supports their program, and we're very concerned, obviously, that they were going to manipulate data, or they were going to try and just basically snow everyone. Especially it was very evident after Bill C-15 went through that the government did not really care about the citizens, and furthermore just wanted to try to dance through the process and get to the end of public consultation, which I don't believe was a consultation. So midway through, we decided that we were going to get the information from the Alto map and all the pins. And it was a very long and drawn out process, not for me. I generally just do videos, but for... Well, it may be my idea, but I have none of the skills to do that. I would have took a snapshot and just talked about it for 30 seconds and been done. But so this information that is going forward is amazing, and it is really, really showing that Alto just wanted to get through this. They did not really want to do public consultation. I'm sure lots of you have been there or have spoken to them, and basically all they want to do is give you a handshake and basically say that we appreciate your input, pin that map, pin that map, pin that map. Have you heard that? I've heard that a million times. And so we were lucky enough to harvest all the information, and not only were we lucky enough to harvest all the information, but we had the ability from people on our committee to put them into categories and to categorize them and come up with basically that no one wants Alto, is basically what it is. We're going to go through it here, and so the public consultation, Alto spent, the money they spent on that was $10 million just on public consultation, and we've done it for free for them. So we have it right here, and it is accurate, and we've done a very, very good job on it, and I would love for them to come and look at these statistics and talk to us about it, because I don't think there'd be so many handshakes. I think they would just be turning and leaving the building. But yeah, I'll let Katie go through this. She's the technical person here. One of. So.
That's not true. I just received a tutorial 2 days ago on this. Okay. Part of the reason why we have also thought that this would be a very essential argument is because, as Gord said, we are concerned as to what would happen with this information, but equally so, we are really kind of sick and tired of the contradictory messaging that Alto continues to put out, like visually, but also like number-wise, statistically as well. So we want them to know that there is this knowledge that exists, and you have to now answer to it. So that is why we were coming out today to tell you about it. Posts by category. The environmental concern, so these are according to Alto's own pins, that there is a significant number, almost 40%, that is concerned about the environment. This is a graph that you can see. This is the post by volume over time. And to be fair, we don't have all the information, but we have a good chunk of it. And the spike at the very beginning is due to, it's from March 7th, and it reflects the launch of the engagement platform. So when we first started to capture the information, okay? So it looks super impressive, but this is a very in-depth and time-consuming process that every single little piece of font has data attached to it. So if you are one of those people who have written a book to Alto, that's great, but it just takes longer to capture. This actually looks really beautiful. This is a heat map. Does it look familiar? We printed it out back there. Yay, Southern Corridor. We lit it up, and that's just like a really nice, artwork. I think we should turn that into postcards, Heather Levy. So this is really interesting. Some of the data, the data was collected using keyword sentiments, and this is really cool. So what happens is that there's positive, negative, and neutral. So think about it like this. I love Alto's high-speed rail project is a positive statement, but so is I love Frontenac Arch Biosphere. But you know what both of those do. One of them approves of the project and one of them disapproves the project. So those positive statements that reflect disapproval of the entire project become a neutral statement because it's not quite accurate. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. I would like to point out the 72.3% negative statements on this chart. So out of the totality, there were 6,980. That represents that 72% of keyword sentiments that would disprove the project, okay? This is what it looks like in a bar graph, the positive, the neutral, and the negative. It could be fair to say that if you parsed out the neutral, it might actually more increase that negative bar. Sentiment by category, this is also a very interesting one. So you'll see like red is negative, gray is neutral, green is positive. And again, using the categories of pins that Alto has given us, there is a lot of red. There's a lot of red from commercial or industrial, environmental, social, cultural, recreational, general, and then urban and rural integration. So that's what that bar looks like to visually demonstrate it. Now this is post by sentiment and area type of rural, small urban, and urban. Us rural folks have a very high percent of sentiment at 77.9%. And then urban and small urban is quite low. And then in terms of sentiment between urban, small urban, and rural, small urban and rural have a fairly high negative sentiment of in the mid to late 70s. Categories share by area type. The top bar is environmental, and the brown bar, so that there's that top category of environmental, and then it is categorized by the three colors. And for rural folks, environmental has been the top category by which to pin. Then it's general, social, cultural, commercial, urban and rural integration, and then recreational. This is fun. Top municipalities by volume. Peterborough represents. Yay, right? And followed by Tyendinaga, Ottawa, Yarker, Stirling, Marmora, Stone Mills, Chaffee's Lock. You people only have 200 folks. Sydenham, Rideau Lakes, Battersea, Smith Falls, South Frontenac, Tay Valley, Harrowsmith, Carleton Place, Perth, Madoc, Toronto, Sealy's Bay. Now, interesting is the way the pin geolocates, it just depends. So actually, like, South Frontenac's bar would be longer if we took into consideration Battersea and Sydenham. It's just where that pin is located on the map and what the really smart people and process they use to gather that, extract that information. So, South Frontenac is still pretty high there. So top municipalities by post and volume is there and listed. South Frontenac has one, so like per sort of population, and then it lists it again, and you can see what the population is and then how many posts. Per capita engagement.
That's how you do it.
Looks like somebody's pretty concerned there.
If you zoom in on the map, all the little bubbles come up, and I treat those as celebration balloons.
So that's Chafee's looks at the top. So if this is posts per 1,000 residents and you only have 200, this is what it would look like. You're very concerned in Chafee's looks, and that's amazing. I feel like you've sort of held us all up. We have a lot of work
Come
to do
visit
in
when
3
it's
days.
over.
Okay. Engagement statistics by area type. Rural posts at 7,355, urban 923, and small urban 1,163. And then the total likes are also remains high for rural, and then urban, and then small urban coming through. Average likes per post by area type in bar form looks as such. And that is what we can tell you and what we know to date. So when we hear things in the news that 70% of Canadians approve high-speed rail, we need to ask ourselves what questions are being asked by Alto. Because our graphs show otherwise, and that is what we wanted to share with you today. So this is the kind of community friction Dr. Andrew Hyatt was talking about, and we should be pretty proud of ourselves to have communicated this to a federal project and to Alto.
So in closing, I'd just like to say that Alto really came to this very, very unprepared, and really not at the fault of their own, but it was really lack of information. And like I said before, any communication that anyone had with Alto at any of the presentations or anything was basically a handshake and a smile, and they didn't have any answers. It's my belief that Bill C-15 and the so-called consultation process was presented to the public with the thought that by the time they figure it out, it's going to be done, and we will be through that process. So thanks to the members of Frontenac and all the other organizations. It's been, trust me, a very challenging 3-4 months for us, and there's been some ups and downs. There's been some times that were maybe not the greatest, but quickly would come some good news, and we'd be back on board and rolling again. At times we felt being tired, but we continually went down the field. Like, we originally started on our own goal line, and we basically had to use every down, if you want to say, in relation to football to get to where we are. And I honestly believe, with the help of the other organizations and some of the political figures in here, and Todd and Andrew Hyatt and that we are literally on their goal line now. And so at the end of public consultation, we still have a lot of work to do in relation to interacting with the government, and there's going to be some different avenues that we take, and things are going to change because the process is done with Alto, but the process is not done with the government. So the idea is now to switch with the government for the government to make a proper decision in relation to the Alto train and rail in general. So we are at that goal line, and South Frontenac does not care who's going to throw that final touchdown. There's a lot of people in the game here now, and we just can't wait for it to be thrown. And we just can't basically wait to celebrate our win, which I think will be coming here shortly.
So our message to the federal government and to Alto is such that this is not just an Ontario and Quebec issue. This is a project that affects all Canadians. Every Canadian should be concerned about government overreach, lack of consultation and engagement, and if we're going to permit ourselves as a G7 nation, then we better act like it and put our people first, instead of these vanity projects that do nothing for a large swath of us. And so how we see this is every Canadian should be concerned. This is a fiscal issue. This is a citizen rights issue. We have other concerns, and we need to take a hard look at ourselves if we're going to say we're this incredible democratic nation and then screw over the very people who, are paying for it. That doesn't make any sense to me. And we need to do better. We need to be, as a nation, accountable. We need to be ethical about this. And we're asking better of our federal government, and we are open to dialogue, and we're open to sitting down at the table with them. And then our message to South Frontenac residents, as we have already alluded to, is we're not going anywhere. There's still a lot of work to do. I had no idea what beyond the 24th would look like, but in the past 72 hours, there are a lot of puzzle pieces coming into play. They're kind of fitting in quite nicely as to what that looks like, so stay tuned for that. And we are so grateful to those of you who have donated to allow us to have these tangible items, the flyers at the back, the hall rentals. Thank goodness we didn't have to pay for this hall rental, so thank you, South Frontenac Township Council, for that, and just the municipality. But it allowed us to move forward, and it allowed us to move forward without worry financially. So this is a summary report that I consider, that it has been by the people, because of the people, and we hope that you will continue to support us and move forward and mobilize with us and the committee leads across township boundaries. You can ask questions of the people in the green lanyard. Some of them are our guests here. Most of them are committee members and then committee leads who also have their own summary report. So if you are media here and want to talk to not just Save South Frontenac, we want to share the platform with the committee leads who are invited. We have children's writing kits at the back that you're welcome to take home with you. We got buttons, because people really like buttons. And Alto signs for purchase. And it was really good to gather in the same room with all of you today. So we will go into a Q&A and invite Andrew and Josh up, but Mayor is really kind of touching his heart here, really wants to come on up. So we'll have Mayor Vanderwell say a few words, and then we'll go into a Q&A.
So I want to try to give a glimmer of hope. I was in Ottawa Wednesday, and it's funny how quick some people accuse me of siding with Kingston, and the mayor does want a train. That is not what I said. I told McKinnon on Wednesday, we had a meeting with him, and I said, absolutely not South Frontenac. I don't care what happens, and I'm not pitting us against any other municipality. But I said it cannot go through South Frontenac. And I gave him an example of even my farm. It would be 30 minutes to get to the back of our farm if they go through the middle. Oh, we would never go through the middle. So anyway, the commitment, I asked for several commitments. He gave us one. I asked for no expropriation west of Ottawa till the first leg is done. He would not commit to that, of course. But he did commit to directing Alto to explore the southern corridor and Brian Patterson's very clear, not through South Frontenac. It has to go through the city of Kingston with a stop or nobody wants it, period. And he got the message, and they are getting the message. They really are, because they're feeling it. And they know that there's a lot of opposition. At the end of the day, it sounds like we're saying, okay, it's okay if it goes to the city of Kingston. You can keep saying no all we want. The reality is they can do whatever the hell they want. So this gives them, I would say, a little bit of grace if they actually look at the southern corridor, explore it. They told us they would actually give us a reason if it could or couldn't happen. We'll see how much details in that. However, it can give them some sort of an out without egg over this. And so he did say he would commit to that. So that's, I guess, the win we had for that day.
And I will say that there is, I spoke with it very briefly there, but there is a lot of other organizations like Andrews and Todd and the CTA, and they have made some leaps and bounds. They're not a community-led organization necessarily, so some of the information that they have has to be held a little bit tighter, but honestly things are looking a lot better for us right now, like a lot better.
I'd also like to say that one of the reasons why we have been so influential is because there's just some really great people sitting in the front rows. They are highly skilled, they are humble, they are friggin' funny, and I have new friends. So if we're gonna thank Alto for anything, I have probably 40 new friends that I never had beforehand. So with that, we can go into a Q&A. We have a traveling Mike, Josh, and Andrew, if you would like to come up and join us in case there's a question for you, you're more than welcome to share space with us. Any questions? I saw, yes, we have a mic coming. We'll just share.
So I thought I should introduce myself. My name is Lorna Jean Edmonds, and I'm Michelle Foxton's counterpart in Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes. I was the Liberal, both provincial and federal candidate. And I thought it was, after meeting Dave yesterday, I thought it was really critical for me to come tonight for all the right reasons. But most importantly is that this southern route, the corridor you're now considering, is clearly in my backyard. I want you to know that when I also met with Minister McKinnon, I supported the consideration of this through our riding. And I think that's really important for you to know, that we want the best result for Canadians and for us in our two ridings that are deeply affected because of this. This corridor that you're talking about is by far the most sensitive, and I am deeply sensitive to your concerns. I'm also deeply impressed by what you have done, literally for all of us in our two ridings, so I'm so grateful. So I won't say anything more, but I just think you need to know that you have support for a third route to be considered, and like the mayors who met with McKinnon last week, the other mayors that I had the privilege to meet with along with Michelle, we're also wanting this southern corridor to be seriously considered for all the right reasons. So thank you very much. The sort of the third option that is, yeah, I don't know what to call it anymore.
Thank you, Todd. Todd's got the microphone here, this is probably very interesting.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that what Ron and it's LJ, we're both talking about is not the southern route through South Frontenac Township. We're calling it actually the 401 corridor route, and that is what is now under consideration.
Any other questions, concerns, comments?
My name is Alan Kendrick. I'm not going to be directly affected by either the northern or southern route, but I really hate to see anything go through either the southern or the northern route. I'd just like to thank you people on the committee for your excellent work and effort. It's incredible to see what you people have done, and I'm thoroughly impressed. Thoroughly impressed. I just have one question. Will you be sending this report over to Transport Minister McKinnon? Any thoughts on that?
Yes.
Okay,
They will
good.
receive a copy.
Good, because I attended the first meeting in Storrington Legion, and I came out of that thinking that the only way that we're going to change this is, it seems to be just a politically motivated decision, because I do have some experience in the rail industry, and I just can't understand why they're considering any of these routes. If you look at the population of Ontario, we've got about 16 million people. They're looking at 3 stations in Ontario, so that's 5 million people per station in Ontario. If you look at Quebec, they've got a population of about 9 million with 4 stations, so that's just over 2 million people per station. So I'm starting to believe it's really a political decision and nothing more than that. Once again, thanks for your effort.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Candy, and I'd like to also echo that and say thank you for all you've done. It's been educational following you along and learning all the ins and outs of what our battle is. So I feel prepped. I'm ready to go. I don't know what your next steps are. I'm wondering if you can elaborate, because I'm feeling like you've got 16,000 followers. What are we going to do? What can we do? I'm hearing what you can do, and I want to know more, but what can we do? How can we help and be part? So thank you for what you've done.
Thank you for that. I'm going to, okay, so 2 things. One, the corridor leads meet as weekly as our schedules allow, and we want to start putting into place more coordinated outreach. We still know that community engagement is really important, and we are thinking about increasing virtual opportunities to meet with anybody who wants to register for it. So I'm just talking very sort of vague here because it's not in place, but opportunities that we might be able to host online and say, you know what, if you want to letter write with us, grab a pen and paper and join us online, and this is what we're going to write together, and then we're going to send it. So we're looking at very sort of like categorized or topical ways of coordinating all our efforts. And I'm going to drop this right now because it was something that we were talking about as a committee. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. There was a Globe and Mail piece that I was in, and they know what I'm going to say. This is going to be so good. And I made the mistake of reading the comments online from that article. And some man had said, "Who cares what some random woman in the country thinks?" I thought it was friggin' hilarious. So this is a call out, and if you're online, to every single random country woman, we're gonna call on you for your energy, for your profile picture, and I want a little reel, a little clip, a 10-second of what are you doing as a random country in the woman? Are you shoveling it? Show us. If you're a bus driver, show us. And if you want to join me in that, then we can have some fun. So we're going to balance some very broad stroke call outs to citizens on a more serious nature, and something that also is very like a pushback to the NIMBYism label, and a pushback to those of us who are considered random living in the country.
Great, we got a question over here.
Well, I just wanted to follow up. That gentleman asked the question actually about sending this report to McKenna, but is it going to go out to a lot of other politicians as well? Because I think, you know, the Premier of Ontario needs to read that. You know, of course, Carney needs to read it. Like, I would just really send it out to everybody.
Yep, we're going to make it available on our website tomorrow, and then send digital copies, yes, as attachments through email.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Got a question in the back here.
Okay.
Hi, how are you? Hi, my name's Jason. I've got a couple of statements and a question. Have you looked at the possibility of taking that report, because it's going to be very, very long, and having somebody make it in a podcast style, or at least an audio version, so people can put it and read it in their car or their MP3 player? Or Gordon, you're good at narrating things. There you go.
Mailman will do a podcast.
Funny enough, before this started, I actually had a podcast like this. I actually had Michelle Fox, I don't know if she's still here, but on the podcast, and then this arose and kind of put that to the back burner. But yes, I think that is things that we will probably move forward with, and not only our own podcast, but we are always open to if someone else has one going on their podcast. But we've been obviously really busy the last 3 months, and going forward, things like that will be happening for sure.
And some people are visually impaired too, so an audio description of what the chart, whatever graphic they're looking at, is going to be helpful too. Somebody mentioned something, it might have been Andrew, and I kind of, there's a lot of talk about citizen engagement. I'm still amazed at my friends who live out here who still know very little about this. I know you've done great work, but there's still an opportunity to reach a whole lot more people. And I kind of like what I started to hear was the evolution of a tagline for community grassroots support. We've all heard of if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. But if you're not part of Alto's problem, you're part of Alto's solution. That might be a good tagline for community involvement. I have a question my question is about the social license. And I think, Andrew, you mentioned that the federal government needs social license for this. Is that like codified in the legislation that they need social license, or just morally they should have social license? And could the social license for the project include areas that aren't directly affected by the infrastructure? Because you certainly could probably find lots of people in downtown Toronto that would give social license to this project.
They don't need social license. I think, as someone said, I think, as the mayor said, they can pretty much do what they want. But really, it all will play to cost, yeah, and whether, and political risk. If they are going to have to, Scott Reed sent me an email yesterday, and he was talking about the financial side of this whole project. They are going to have to raise money through bonds. There's going to be bond issuances, and it's not, social license is going to be a rather subtle thing in the way it works. Yeah, we need to slowly turn this ship, and what we're doing here is part of getting it turned. Community action and the friction here is a very early indicator. Yeah. But when the legal stuff starts to pick up, I was supposed to go to Navan yesterday evening. I didn't end up going. But there, the notices are going out. Alto wants to come and do site investigations on your land. And there you're beginning to see people talking to the two farmers there, mortgage brokers, imagine you have a mortgage, and Alto are crawling over your land. They want access to your land for the next 3 years. How do you renew your mortgage? Yeah. So what is going to happen here over time is that we've got to find out, you know, if we start getting requests from Alto, and whether there's any kind of collective response. The legal stuff is going to be expensive, obviously, yeah. But the social license weighs on the politicians. I think it does. And certainly, we know from the jet problem in Ottawa, in Toronto.
The gravy plane.
The gravy plane in Toronto that Doug Ford is receptive to negative feedback.
Yeah.
So we've stopped the gravy plane, now we have to stop the gravy train.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions or comments from you folks?
One in the back, I'm Rowan.
Thank you. I'm Allison. I'm from the Buck Lake area. I just had a question about the site notations that people were getting. I know there's been talk of putting up notices or refusing to allow people on your land. I'm not against that. I'm just worried that the government, or they might use it against us, saying we're trying to do environmental studies, but we're not getting permission to come on people's land. It's just something I was thinking about.
So I'll speak to the legal aspect of trespassing property, and maybe Andrew can speak to the other. So the Trespass to Property Act is a provincial act, and so how it works is you can, if you are the rightful owner, or if you rent the property, or you are a caretaker with direction from the owner, you can trespass anyone from your property. So how to do that is actually send them a letter that it clearly states the act in the Trespass to Property Act. The unfortunate part about the Trespass to Property Act is, one, it's fine committing. So the officer has to find the person on the property to have the actual offense of trespass to property. The other unfortunate part about it is it's a $65 fine. So it's not a really big deterrent. However, in relation to it, and if it does get to that point, you can remove anyone from your property that is trespassing, and you can use as much force as necessary. I'm not telling you to do that, but what I am saying is you have a legal right if someone is on your property and you inform them that they are trespassing and you are the legal holder of that property, that they have to leave. That really scares organizations. I can give you an example so the property I have has the large hydro lines that run through the Buck Lake area and then Perth Road and across Battersea. The hydro have a contract to cross my property. Luckily enough, the guy before I had it did not deed the property to them, which a lot of it was deeded, or the easement was actually signed for lifelong. He only signed a 7-year access. So every 7 years they have to provide financial recoupment for just being accessing the property. Hydro never ever would call you. They had nothing. I would reach out and nothing. So what I did is I sent a letter to every one of their lawyers saying that everyone from Hydro 1 has been trespassed to the property until further notice, and immediately the next day there was a contract in my email because they do not want to deal with people that in relation to trespass to property, because it is a very, very, very strong law, even though it is a provincial offense and the fine is very small. The ability of what you can do to it is very powerful. For example, they pulled in the one day and I took my excavator and parked it behind their truck and I put the loader or the shovel in front of the truck. And I left it there until they called their manager, and the manager come out and I basically said, you guys are trespassing and you haven't signed the contract. You signed the contract and everything is legal, and it got resolved immediately. But it's a touchy situation, and I don't know in relation to them coming to want to study your property, whether you say no, they're going to say they are just not, they're not helping, so we're gonna do it in another way, whether it is aerial, whether it is drone, I don't know technology, how they can do that, but.
So currently, all of the requests are voluntary. And so there's no plans to go on people's property at this point, unless they're invited on. And that's what Alto has said, and that's what Alto is doing right now. Now, will that potentially change if everyone says no and they're moving forward with the project? Potentially. But it's all voluntary right now. So if you get a notice, you just say no. And that's what we're sharing with our members as well, is you just say no.
Yeah, and I think that that's correct. And I do know that I believe this is true anyway, that they have been giving financial incentives to people to go on the project as well.
$1,500.
So, yeah, so, I mean, they're trying any way they possibly can, but again, with technology, I don't know how much they actually require to do that. Like, I don't know technology now, whether it is that important to actually enter your property, but if you are getting a notice that they're entering your property here, you're not in a good spot.
We actually had this discussion amongst committee leads. I don't know if you remember that, and it was kind of like a, what would you do? Would you allow them on? And one committee lead was saying, like, I want to be over their shoulder, and I want to point out every leaf, every insect, every animal, every, invasive, like everything, all these species, make sure that it is being written down and accounted for. So there are two mindsets. Don't come on my property at all, or I'm going to show you what's at risk.
Right, because it kind of backfires if you say, if we don't let them to do the environmental studies, then they can always say, well, we tried doing environmental studies.
You've got to understand what they mean by environmental studies. It's nothing to do with the environment. It's nothing at all to do with the environment. They are not interested in bugs and trees or anything like that. They want to know what's down there. Yeah. They want to know what equipment they're going to have, how far the bedrock is down, how thick the soil is, what that soil's made of. They want to know whether there's water. They'll be interested in water on your land, yeah? And can they, so they may want to make some maps there. But not because they're interested in the fish that are living in the water. It's just a matter of, if they have to do something with that water, that is going to cost them money. So environmental is not really what you think. It's an engineering study, okay? Where they say environmental, you say engineering site investigation, yeah?
With that in mind, are we aligned with the farmers union and saying, just say no? Or is it beneficial for them to get an idea, particularly, if you think your property might be difficult for them to work on, is there value in allowing them access?
Josh, you object to the back there.
Damn no. They've got to go there eventually. Just make them wait as long as we possibly can. Well, why would you make their life easier? Yeah. Unknown, they will always assume the worst. Yeah. So if they get in and say, oh, it's actually quite good here, we'll go through it. That's the danger.
I'm going to take we will take one last question or comment if you have anything burning. Otherwise, we have some committee leads that really need to have dinner together.
Hi. Can I just ask, I work with a bunch of people who ask questions for a living. So I'm wondering, you said you'd be sharing the report on the site. Is there a way that we can get the digital copy? And my question is it okay if I print off a copy and leave it in my staff room? Or,
Well, yes. I mean, this is public information that we've collated. Again, I said that it was, by the people and because of the people, so it has been community fed, and it's only proper that everyone has access to it, and it'll be like a PDF download for you.
Awesome.
One section of the report will not be for public consumption just yet, but the majority of it will be. Thank you so much for joining us in our town hall today. Oh, we have Mark who's...
No, I just want to say thanks to everyone who's watching on the live stream.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's some folks who are business owners. If you want your name added to the business letter, contact us. Let us know the name of your business, your name, so we can add you to the list. And just generally don't hesitate to get in touch with us.
Excellent. Thank you so much to everybody for
Thank
being
you,
here.
guys.
Thank you.